Hello and welcome back to Journey with Rebecca. My name is Rebecca and this weekend I am having a huge food preservation weekend. So I've mentioned it before, I work on a farm. All of the food that you see behind me, I either have grown myself or have gotten for free, minus the bananas that need to be turned into banana bread. But I'm so blessed and so lucky and abundant to have all of this food available to me, and I don't want it to go to waste, so I'm going to start preserving it today. In addition to that, I also have herbs from my garden and from the farm that I also am going to dehydrate. So today will consist of dehydrating food, using my food saver to get stuff ready for the freezer, and doing a water bath canning with a ton of stuff. I'm making vegetable stock, I'm making applesauce, I'm doing all the things, it seems. So I have a list here of all the things that I need to get processed. I'm gonna try not to stress out about it because there's a lot of stuff to do. And like I see videos of like people canning like 200 quarts of tomatoes, which is absolutely insane. I'm not doing anything on that level, but a lot of this I'm doing for the first time. So it can be a bit intimidating, but I'm just gonna take my time, try not to stress myself out about it, and remain thankful and grateful for the abundance that I have. I got all of this food for free from the farm because these are things that we were not able to sell to our customers because they have imperfections, and some of the imperfections we do sell as seconds, and some of them are just too imperfect things that we wouldn't sell to our customers. So what would happen is they would end up going in the compost bin. You can see this pepper here has a blemish on it. That's not something with open flesh there that we would give to our customers. Onions, if they're a little soft or have any sort of, cuts or anything in them, we just wouldn't give to our customers. We don't do seconds for our potatoes. So any potato that sort of looks funny, has imperfections, or has any green on it, we don't sell to our customers. So I have an overabundance of potatoes, and I am giving some of these away. I'm not keeping all of them for myself. These tomatoes were all going to be compost. You can see they're not in the greatest position. You know what I mean. I haven't gone through these yet. Some of these really probably will end up in the compost, but I am saving all of this from being compost. It's perfectly good food, just not sellable. I did grow these carrots myself. I will be using some of those for stock. When I worked at the pizza shop, my brother's pizza shop briefly, I brought home and saved a bunch of celery. I made my own celery salt with that, and then I saved some so I could make stock for it, so I have that as well. And I just have a ton of stuff, so I don't want it to go to waste, so I'm taking this opportunity to preserve it so I can feed my family this winter. So the first thing I'm going to start with is peppers, because I'm not doing much with them. The only thing I'm doing is I'm putting a few aside for my bonus daughter. She's going to come grab them today, and then the rest of them I'm just going to slice them up and put them in some bags, get them in the food saver, seal them up nice, and then I'm going to throw them in the freezer. They are going to be used whenever I'm cooking a dish that needs peppers. I already have some that I have diced and some that I have sliced. They'd be great for fajitas, things like that. I'm also going to be doing the same thing with onions, but this is what I mean when I talk about there being imperfections in the food. This is a perfectly good pepper other than this, which I'm just going to cut off and throw in my own compost. So other than that, this is a beautiful pepper. So I'm just going to get these all sliced up, processed, put in the food saver bags, and throw them in the freezer. Then that will be done and out of the way. All right, so for whatever reason that I cannot figure out, my food saver is not working. It will suck all of the air out of it, but it will not seal. Typically, I also don't know why. Maybe someone has some insight for me. Typically, when I go to seal something, it takes me 3 tries. Then it seals. Not sure why. This is my grandmother's, was my grandmother's. I have no idea how old it was or is. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm very frustrated. I'm going to take these out of these bags and just throw them in freezer bags, and that's just going to have to do, I don't know. Somebody help. I spent entirely way too much time trying to figure out the food saver. I don't know. It is what it is. It's 10:48. This is what I've done so far today. I've been up since 7. This is what I've done. It's going to be a very, very long day. I am moving on to onions. I am doing the same thing. I'm going to slice onions and I'm going to dice onions. Great for fajitas, or if you're cooking sausage and peppers and onions, to just have in the freezer to just pull out. They're already processed. All you have to do is thaw them out and cook them. So I'm just going to keep moving along and put that frustration of the food saver behind me. All right, I have completed my onions and my peppers. Listen, I know it's not a lot. I only got 4 bags of things, but that's things that I have 4 meals for now. It doesn't, if you're doing something like this, it doesn't have to be some huge thing where you feel like you need a ton of stuff. If you only have enough money to go to the grocery store and buy 1 extra pepper, then buy 1 extra pepper. If it's on sale, buy it, bring it home, process it, and throw it in the freezer so you have it for later. It doesn't need to be some huge thing. So now I'm just preparing myself for my vegetable stock. I've never made vegetable stock before in my life, but I've always wanted to, and I have the stuff to do it now, so I'm going to do it. So I just quartered an onion. I'm going to grab another onion and quarter that because I am actually doubling this recipe. So I need 4 onions for this. And luckily, I happen to have 4 onions left because I am going to give 1 away along with 2 bell peppers. So this recipe calls for, well, again, I'm going to double it, but it calls for 2 large onions quartered. So I'm doubling it and doing 4. And then I'm adding carrots. The carrots I grew myself. So I will have some carrots that are left over. But again, I didn't thin my carrots. Again, this is the second time that I've planted and grown carrots, and last year I put out a video about like lessons that I learned as a beginner gardener, and one of them was the fact that I didn't thin out my carrots. And I didn't thin my carrots out again this year, and you can tell they're not full-size carrots, but they're perfect to put in stocks, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to keep moving along and processing all these vegetables down. What I'm going to do is cook them down and sweat them out, and then I'll add the rest of the ingredients, and that'll just sit and simmer and reduce down, and then I'm going to water bath can them. So I have them in my pantry for later, and then while that is cooking down, I think the next thing I'm going to start doing is start this is one of the onions, and it's clearly not good. The very outer layers are okay, so I can peel those off and use them, but the inside I can't use, which this was free, so I cannot complain. Free food. I was saying I am going to start, while this is simmering, I'm going to start processing some of the rosemary that's behind me and grab some from the garden as well. And I'm going to start drying some of the herbs in the dehydrator because that is going to take a considerable amount of time. I also have to go out and grab a couple of cloves of garlic for my stock. So I'm just going to keep going and hopefully make a little bit more progress than I've been making because it's been a really slow start. I have my stock, my vegetables for my stock next to me, sweating it out on the stove. So while that is happening, before I add my water to my stock, I'm going to start processing my rosemary. So I've mentioned before, I work at a farm in a greenhouse, and we pack CSA boxes. CSA is Community Supported Agriculture. Each week you sign up for either a full share or half share, and you get a box of produce each week. This week there were rosemary plants in them, and the greenhouse smelled so good all week. But whenever we had like sprigs fall off of them, or if we had like sad looking plants like this, we can't sell those to our customers. So we only sell the best of the best to the customers. The rest of them we get to take home, or they get composted. So yesterday was the last day for the CSA for the week, so we all went through and separated out all of the sellable items, and then the rest of them we got to take home, or they were composted. So I am fortunate enough to have all of this beautiful rosemary, and now I want to preserve it. And you can do it, you can preserve herbs several ways. My favorite way is just to do it in the dehydrator. I already brought some home earlier in the week that I dehydrated. It's actually still sitting in the dehydrator. I need to take it out before I put this next batch in. But you could hang it if you wanted to. You know, you could just tie a string around it and hang it. You could get those like baskets that you can put herbs in and dry them like that. You could dry them out in the sun. There's tons of different options. You could put them in the oven if you wanted to. So if you don't have a dehydrator, it doesn't mean that you can't dehydrate your herbs or dry them. It just means that you have to find another method. But my favorite method, aside from the noise of the dehydrator, which I absolutely hate, I hate the noise. It's like this, it's a white noise, but not a good white noise. So sometimes I have been known to put the dehydrator out in the garage just so I don't have to listen to it. So this might seem like a lot of rosemary, but it's really not. Because once it dehydrates, this doesn't shrink as much as other herbs do, but once it dehydrates and you know, do whatever you're going to do to it, it's going to be not as much as you would think. So like this is an example of why we could not sell this particular rosemary to our customers. It's just not the greatest looking. There are some good sprigs on there, so I will take those off, but the other ones I'll take off and they'll just go in the compost pile. I did also keep one of the plants way down there. I kept one of the plants to keep in my garden. I recently planted a bunch of basil that I brought home from the farm. I saved them, rooted them, and planted them so I can have fresh herbs in my kitchen all year. Now I get to do the same thing with the rosemary, which I'm so thankful for. I'm just going to keep going, washing all of this, and then we'll move on to the next part of actually removing the rosemary from the stems and getting it into the dehydrator. I really wish you could smell how good it smells in here, because it smells amazing with all this fresh rosemary. I took all of the dried rosemary that I had out of the container or out of the dehydrator, and I put it into just an old jar for now, just to store it until I'm ready to move on, because I still have a ton of rosemary that I need to dehydrate. I still have some on my plant in my herb garden, and then I also have some fresh sprigs that I just brought home, washed up, and put into a paper towel and a baggie. So I have some fresh stuff in the fridge too, and I'm also giving some away. So there's plenty to be had by all. But the next part's really easy. All you're gonna do is just take your rosemary and you're just going to peel it all off. What you're left with is this. And it's cleaned and washed. You're just going to throw it in your dehydrator now and turn it on. For the sake of my sanity and for the sake of the rest of this video, I will be putting it out in the garage just so I don't have to listen to it. So now I just have to get all of the rosemary off of these sprigs, get them in the dehydrator. Behind me, I still have my stock that is coming up to a boil. Once that boils, I will reduce that down. That's going to sit on the stove for about an hour and a half. Then I'm going to throw it all in canning jars and water bath can it. Some things just don't work the way I want them to, or I have a plan for something and then I realize I can't do that. I think I said at the beginning of this, I'm doing a lot of stuff today that I've never done before. And apparently it is not safe to water bath can vegetable broth. Who knew? Not me. I had no idea. Apparently you need a pressure canner. I don't have a pressure canner. So plan B, because my stock is about to be done and I've prepared a double batch thinking that I was going to can all of this and just have shelf stable stuff to put on my shelf, and that is not the case. Plan B, I guess I'm freezing it. I have never frozen anything in a canning jar. I know that there's some safety precautions you need to follow, so now I have to go look that up, figure out what that's all about. Or I could put it into a bag, which seems messy, and freeze it flat somehow and not have it make a huge mess. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, because now I'm going to have all of this broth that I have to preserve somehow, because I don't want it to go to waste. That's the whole point, is preserving stuff so it doesn't go to waste. So plan B. Okay, plan B doesn't work. Doesn't work either. Plan C, I'm putting them in freezer bags, just Ziploc bags. I'm putting the stock in there and I'll lay it flat and store it like that. And another video I wanted to make was actually cleaning out my freezer, taking stock and inventory of what's actually in there for winter, because I have a terrible bad habit of throwing a bunch of stuff in there, having it be very unorganized, and then not knowing what I have. I don't have room in my freezer right now for this, but it's gonna have to work. The jars that I have won't work because they're tapered and they're supposed to not be tapered or something like that. And I don't want to go out and buy more jars because I've already spent money on a bunch of jars. I have freezer bags, so I'm just going to use freezer bags. I really started this day out trying not to be stressed about the incredible amount of things that I have to do this weekend. And I know I don't have to get it all done today. And even if I don't get it all done this weekend, that's fine too. That's why I started using like the vegetables and things that are most vulnerable to going bad the quickest first, because I wanted to get that done and out of the way. So like if I don't get to the potatoes right away, it's fine. They're stable. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to go bad. So I'm just trying not to be stressed about the curveballs that I've been thrown today, and I think I'm doing all right. I'm handling it well-ish. My stock is completely done now. I am going to let it cool. And I guess the good news is I won't have to take all of that time using the canner to can all that broth. I can just pour it into bags, get it into the freezer, and be done with it. Which means now I'm able to actually move on to applesauce. I have 2 packs of apples. Some of them are seconds, some of them were compost. So the quality of them is really going to differ, and there's a lot of them. But I wanted to be able to can applesauce, which I know I can do in a water bath canner because I have done it before. So I'm just gonna move on. And if that's the only other thing that I get done today, I'm okay with it. I'm starting off with the pack of apples that I have that were destined for the compost. Now, you get to the compost in the greenhouse one of 2 ways. Either you fell on the floor, and even if you were a perfectly good piece of fruit or vegetable, we don't serve anything that fell on the floor to our customers, even if it literally grows in the ground in the dirt. We just don't do it. Second way is if you look something like this. If you have like a fruit or a vegetable that has a hole in it, that is wounded, that has open flesh, we don't serve that to our customers in the CSA, and we don't serve them as seconds either. They're just not good enough. The quality is not good enough to sell. So we get to take them home if it's compost, or it just goes in the compost, which is one of the things that I really love about this job, is that there really is zero waste, because even if it's composted, it's not being thrown away. It's being composted and it's going back into the soil that's going to grow the next crop of fruits and vegetables. So you can do applesauce a lot of ways. You could even leave the skin on if you wanted to. I don't prefer to do that. If you have like a little apple mill thing, which I do have one actually, I'm not going to use it though. sometimes I just find that it's easier to just use a vegetable peeler or a paring knife to just peel the skin off, and then I have a lot of that to do. So I'm going to start by just taking off the skins, and then I will core them, cut them down into chunks, and then my stove is very full, and I joked with my husband this morning that I needed a bigger stove, and he's told me I was nuts. And I was only just joking. Like, I have 4 burners, and then I have a huge like middle burner in the middle of the stove that's like the full length of 2 burners, which is great because when I am canning things, that's what I put my canner on. So I was just joking, but I am taking up a lot of space on my stove today. Eventually I can move the stock that I just made, and then I'll have plenty of room for my apples. These apples are going to cook down a ton, which is why I went out to the farm today and actually bought some. So I bought a peck of Seconds Honeycrisp apples. They were $10. That's all I spent for a whole peck of apples. And if there's any bad parts, which there will be because they're Seconds, which just means there's little imperfections on them, you just cut those off and then you move on with your day. It's no big deal. So I already have 1 apple peeled just here talking to you. I'm just going to keep going along with the process until I have enough to actually cut up and make into applesauce. I just finished another round of cleanup because I hate working in a messy kitchen. I had to stop what I was doing to go pick up my daughter. And so I have the last of the applesauce done. It's all in one pot now. And I, tasted it to make sure it tasted all right. So it's just sitting for a second while I finish the rest of this cleanup. I'm just drying some dishes now, and then I'm going to transfer my stock into freezer bags. I'm really hoping that I don't make a huge mess of it. I still have to strain the vegetables out of it. It's just been sitting in the pot since this morning, way earlier this morning when I finished it. It's 4:30 now. It's been a really long day, and I honestly feel like I have not accomplished much. But that's okay. We're just going with it. So whatever. Actually, I think the only other thing I'm going to do today is get the stock in the freezer, and then I'm going to can the applesauce, and that will be it for today. Maybe if I do anything else, I will go outside and work on cleaning up some of the garlic that I have out there, because there's 200 bulbs of garlic that need to be gone through and taken care of because they've been sitting there for weeks. I literally just got done saying that I was going to take care of the stock next after I filmed that last segment, and then my son was like, you ready to take me to work? So I had to stop again to take my son to work. So I am finally going to get to this vegetable stock that I made, which again is my first time making any sort of vegetable stock. So I'm just going to drain out all that goodness. It looks really good. I was a little worried because it wasn't very dark to begin with, but like the vegetables have been sitting in here all day, and I think I probably could strain it again, but I don't think I'm going to. There's just like a few little bits of vegetables that have kind of seeped through there, but they don't bother me. I don't mind. I'm just going to leave them in there. Let me grab my bags. So I think the easiest way for me to do this is to just take a Ziploc bag and put it in the pot here. And then I am going to kind of scoop it using a measuring cup, because I want to have an idea of how much I'm actually getting in the bag that I'm freezing, because I want them to be even bags. So I think I'll just scoop out with a measuring cup, pour it in, and hope that I don't make a ginormous mess. Okay, so day 1 is done. just marking off my list. I did the peppers and the onions. Those are in the freezer. I did the vegetable stock. That's in the freezer as well. And then as soon as that's frozen, I can get rid of the tray that they're on and organize the freezer with that. I have the applesauce behind me that just got done. Rosemary is out in the garage. I just checked that. It's not quite done yet. I still tomorrow have to do tomatoes, potatoes, garlic, lemon balm, mint, and mugwort that I'm drying. And that will be it for this session of food preservation for the winter. Day 2 began with another late start because I did have a game to go to for my daughter. And as soon as I got home, I started processing the lemon balm that I have in my garden. I do not recall planting this lemon balm. I know that I tried planting it a year before and it never grew. I don't know where this came from. I'm happy to have it. It's got a ton of health benefits and medicinal properties. I'm drying it to use as a tea. It smells amazing and does not take as long to dry as rosemary did, which is great because I still have peppermint and mugwort that I also would like to dry as well. I had been avoiding canning the tomatoes because I've never done it before and I was intimidated by it. It turned out not to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. I started just by blanching the tomatoes, which is something I've done before. The skins peeled off really easily. And I just started kind of working in batches until I got an idea of how many tomatoes would fit in the cans and went from there processing everything. While it did need to be in the water bath longer than the applesauce did from yesterday, the whole process went very quickly and I was really happy with the quantity that I got and how well they turned out. While the last batch of tomatoes was in the canner, I decided to go out to my potting bench and finally take care of the garlic that I harvested weeks ago. I honestly forgot about it for a while and just haven't had time to get out there and get it done. So I started by just taking the ends off that had dried, putting them into a basket, getting rid of any gross, yucky ones. There were probably only one or two that were like moldy and mildewy that I had to get rid of. I did then go back and process them all again. So I did touch them twice. It did take a little bit longer, but it was worth it to be able to really go through, take out any that were split, discolored, or really just too small to even bother with. I did get rid of a ton of it because it just wasn't great, but I also kept a ton. Plus, I didn't plant any of this garlic. This all grew by itself, so I ended up with a pretty great harvest. Okay, it's late on night 2, and I'm ready to be done. I'm tired and I'm ready to have my kitchen back, and I'm ready to relax. I've had 2 very, very stressful, busy weekends, and I'm just ready to rest. So I am being done now, even though I am not completely done, which I will explain. But I just want to show you quick everything that I actually have from doing all of this prep this weekend. So the very first thing I started with was the peppers, diced and sliced. I also have diced and sliced onions. I would have put these in a food saver bag and sealed them, but remember, it wasn't working. So that just is what it is. Also, what a curveball was me not being able to can the broth that I made. So I made vegetable broth. I wasn't able to can it because it's not food safe. You need a pressure canner. I ended up just freezing it. It froze kind of funny because I kind of placed them all on like a baking sheet and let them freeze flat, but it's okay. It'll fit nicely in the freezer. I have 4 of these. So each one of these is equivalent to one of these. So I have 4 of them. I made them myself. with things that I grew and was able to save and got from the farm myself. So my first time making broth, although it didn't go quite how I expected, it turned out all right. Next thing I made was applesauce. Now this is where I realized just how much it takes to feed a family, to feed America. Like, I started with 2 packs of apples. I ended with 6 quarts and 2 pints. That's it, of applesauce, which I was hoping to get more out of all those apples. But this isn't the end for me. I'm still going to continue getting produce from the farm, and I'll still be canning things. So not as much as I wanted, but still a lot. The other thing I have here, which I didn't film because I made it last weekend, I made 24 jars of peach and nectarine jam. I've given a lot of it away already, but the rest of it I'm probably just gonna kind of hang on to, and this will be used throughout the winter for us. So I made those as well. Then I harvested I already harvested my garlic, but I processed it all and ended up with a pretty good sized basket of garlic. I did give some away, and I probably will give more away, and I think I still have a few bulbs from last season. I grew this myself. Well, it grew itself. I didn't plant it. It just grew in my garden. So I have a lot of garlic, which I'm really happy with. The other thing I was really happy with was the way the tomatoes turned out. I never made tomatoes before, or I never canned them before. I was scared. It turned out well. I still need to take the rings off of these probably tomorrow morning, but I got 6 quarts and 10 pints. So I was really happy with the amount of tomatoes that I got. I use these a lot when I make soups and stuff. So I'm really pleased with that. And then the last few things, a ton of dried rosemary, which I still have some from last year. I saved a plant that I will be growing in my kitchen, and I still have more outside in my garden, which I will need to process. And then I also dried mint from my garden, peppermint, and I dried lemon balm from the garden. I still have more of these too, several more batches of these to dry. I use these in teas. I have my own home apothecary. So if you're getting sick, I like to turn towards more natural remedies than going to the pharmacy. And these have great medicinal properties, great for teas, really happy with those. And I also have more parsley outside in the garden too. So the only thing that I did not get to this weekend was all of these potatoes still, and I'm giving myself permission to be okay with that and to rest and give myself grace, because I did a lot this weekend. The potatoes are going to be stable for a while. They're not going to go bad right away. Everything else that was at risk of going bad or possibly being wasted, I was able to save and preserve, and now I have it for my family. So a couple ups and downs and bumps along the way, but I think for I've never done canning like this before in like such quantity. I have canned before. I've never done it in this sort of bulk fashion. So I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. And I'll get to the potatoes when I get to them, but I'm giving myself permission to rest and not put pressure on myself. And if you're feeling the pressure, you have my permission absolutely to rest, because it'll still be there tomorrow. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. I did enjoy doing this, and I feel so lucky and grateful to have this abundance. And I guess that's it. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and I will see you all soon.